Hey all! This is the second part of the interview with the developers of Kinstrife on the response mechanics side of it. What they have now, what they're hoping to achieve, with a good bit of technical talk on the behind the scenes of the Gore, which is always very cool to hear. A thing they'll be looking into is dynamic dismemberment, having the limbs sever at the very spot you hit them. It isn't guaranteed, but hopefully they will be successful with achieving it. Now, to the interview itself.
Now we have a progressive blood system. Basically, yeah, we only just started with the blood maybe a month or two ago, and the plans for blood are much more than what we have right now. But like I just said, we started with simple blood splatter on character clothing, and so when a character gets hit, we do a splash on the clothing or a slash, and that slash grows gradually over some time. So the blood sort of leaks through the clothing. I think that's the first step. I'm not sure if you want to talk about it on a technical level, how we do that, because there were some challenges
Oh yeah,
involved.
absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe Christoph can start with it from his perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe to preface that by mentioning that for us, it's a bit more challenging than with most other games, because what we did forget to mention about the key features is that we have a layer-based equipment system, which means that you have multiple layers of clothing and armor that you're able to put on, which means you also, of course, have multiple meshes that move, that are layered, that we push inwards and outwards to make them fit of each other.
Yeah, I think it's basically the reason Xenema doesn't have Dismemberment. I think I saw that on the Discord.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. And this makes it a lot harder, like the Xenema devs also mention and face them, because a lot of the cool effects that you see are authored beforehand. So you can have some parts that are kind of like cut off, pre-authored. And the other big thing is that if you just have one layer, then you can assign. So on a technical level, I think that was already also mentioned by the Household devs in that interview, but you have textures that go over those 3D models that add all this detail. And those textures are kind of, if you take a cube and you cut out paper, you would have like 6 sides, and you can wrap that around to create a 3-dimensional cube, but you can also kind of like lay it out on 2D on paper. And that's kind of the texture projection, and that is called UV coordinates. And if you just have one model, then you know beforehand what the UV coordinates are going to be for all parts of the model, and then you can very easily add things on top of a model and successively in a shader create dynamic effects there as well. But because we have this layer-based system where you could have, for example, 2 meshes on the same part of the character as well, kind of like overlapping, this makes it a lot harder to reason about what is going to be where on the character at which height, what is going to be the top level or the bottom level. Because let's say we have a male hauberk, male armor over a gambazon, and those can also move freely because we also have a sort of like soft body system so that clothing can move around. We cannot display some sort of like deeper cut or deeper wound on the male itself if it is flapping around freely and you can still see the gambazon underneath, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this makes it a lot trickier and a lot more challenging. So that's why for the first step, we are focusing on an approach with vertex colors. So the mesh consists of vertices of individual points that make up this model, this mesh. And we can then know which are the regions that are close to the wound that was caused by an impact. And we take this as a basis to then progressively find close vertices and also kind of factor in gravity. So it kind of like leaks down a bit. And we mark those, and based on that, we have a shader that kind of controls how a surface appears, and we add in a blood effect where we change the color and also the wetness, the reflections, and we can make that grow over time, and deeper cuts appear in a deeper red, so there's a really saturated, dark, bloody red. And they can also dry over time, right? So that at some point you get kind of like a more matte red color over the clothing. That's the current state of things.
Oh, you guys are also using Unreal?
No, we are using Unity.
Oh, okay.
We'll take that as a compliment.
for the graphics. And no, we use
It does look nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so another thing, what is really cool in Unity, so we use HDRP, the high definition render pipeline, and it has a lot of cool options for visual effects. So another blood system that we have in are the splashes and the blood dripping and the splatters.
Mm-hmm.
And we also do that kind of physics-based because we have adapted our dirt and debris impact. So we initially created a dirt and debris impact visual effect system, which factors in the velocity and the angle, and also whether material is more dusty or has like more bigger chunks that are being spread out.
Oh yeah, by the way, just actually thought like, so let's say you have a blooded guy, kind of push him into the mud, and the blood the mud can kind of stick to the blood. Is it at all possible, with all the stuff?
Oh, we also have a dynamic dirt system where clothing can get dirty. Yeah, so yeah.
So kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
And wet from rain. Yeah, talking about
Yeah.
But the dirt or the blood on a character doesn't translate back into the terrain or puddles there. It's only...
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually we do have blood puddles.
We do have blood puddles, but when a character falls down...
Oh yeah,
it doesn't bloody, he doesn't leave a stain yet. But those are all things we could improve on. But yeah, that's the sort of stuff we love, and it's really the reward for us to be able to work on such like technical systems. So it's definitely a thing we're gonna keep expanding on.
Yeah, because I think that goes for the both of us. What we find really rewarding and cool about games is that when you do something in the world and it has a noticeable effect, and that's really cool. Like your character falls onto the ground, and then the clothing will become dirty. It will become muddy, and it's raining, and then the clothing becomes wet, and it doesn't move around kind of like in a flowy type of way, but like it sticks more to the characters, and the clothing becomes heavy.
Yeah.
So all these kind of small interactions between the world and the characters that we just find that very cool and rewarding to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all of this in mind, is Dismemberment at all possible?
I would say
go out on a limb. Possible. I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. I personally am a sucker for it. So Christoph has always had to rein me in and not go too hard on that sort of thing. So I know there will be a moment where I think we're definitely going to have a crack at it. From my perspective, at least. So possible, yes. And down the line, I definitely want to look at it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we definitely are going to look at it. I think in order of things, we will first look at, deeper cuts and, like those wounds, because those will also be a very good, I guess, preparation on the technical side. Because if we can kind of get those working, we will definitely be able to apply some of what we have worked up there for actual, like, full dismemberment. So I think on that.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, so one of the limitations, generally speaking, is that this is a bit technical, but a big limitation to dismemberment is that you have to modify the actual mesh in order for it to look good. Some games do it by, for instance, if you cut off the hand, they just scale the hand bone to 0. So every part of the mesh that's skinned to the hand will be at 0 scale, disappear, and then they put like a cap, a Gore cap on top of a bloody stump on top. That's how many games do it. But if you wouldn't be able to cut in the middle of the head or the middle of the arm and stuff like that. And what they generally don't do is modify a mesh on a vertex level, because that is what would be required if you want to cut an arm in half between bones. But for us, because of the way our character customization works with the layering, we already have the meshes set up that we can basically freely modify them per character. And that's a thing, many games don't do. They share their meshes between characters, and there's some performance implications for that. But for us, every mesh and every character is unique, so we're free to modify it at will, which is why we can paint it why we can paint the vertices to be bloody. And that's actually one of the bigger things that's needed for dismemberment on a mesh level to work. So that's why I'm quite confident to say it's possible with our current tech.
Oh wow, so if you can make it work, it does sound like it will exceed my expectations for it for sure. We're talking about basically cutting anywhere you hit, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I think if we get around to it, that is the goal. Because I think especially with physics-based combat, where we go to such length to make the impacts, really to dial that in. It would just be weird if you kind of hit the lower arm and the hand just comes flying off, completely cleanly cut off. I don't know. In that case, you might as well just not have dismemberment if it's kind of on such a level where you hit one place and the cut off, the separation is somewhere different. So yeah.
Yeah, I think actually one of the cooler parts would be partial dismemberment, where you cut and then a thing sort of crack opens and the body part hinges. Sorry if it's getting a bit graphic, but we are on
this is what this channel is about, man.
Exactly. So that's, I think, the ultimate thing, and you need mesh manipulation to get that to work for sure.
And also man, that and also the physics-based stuff, which we already do, right? We essentially just disable the kind of the forces holding it together at that point. So that also makes it very suitable for us. And I mean, also the the more partial wounds, that is definitely a lot more what you would be seeing anyway, right? So yeah.
And indeed, what you mentioned, one thing that is going to be fairly easy to do in our system is having broken bones. For instance, if you get hit in the leg with, let's say, big two-handed weapon, the knee snaps, we can simply disable the stability on the joint, and the leg will buckle in a bad way. That's stuff that's basically built into having a physics-based system. And, of course, the AI needs to be able to handle that, not try to stand on and stuff like that. But those are all really cool effects that are going to be, that we're going to add down the line.
All right, yeah, sounds awesome. All of it. So anything else response-wise we haven't mentioned yet, or?
Yeah, maybe briefly. I quickly mentioned that down the line, but like I said, we really like working on those smaller responsive features that kind of make everything go hand in hand, and part of that is also the soft body physics system. It's kind of fake soft body systems, but essentially the idea is to have anything that is not fully fixed to kind of wobble a bit. You have your armor and your clothing, and for example, if you do a quick swing with a sword, it's not going to perfectly follow your arm, but it's going to have some overshoot and keep swinging a bit. And we already have added that as well, and that also I think that also really underlines the whole physics animation part of it as well, because you don't just have the physics part on a larger level of the movement of the limbs, but also of everything that is attached to characters, with the scabbards, the way that those move, and the way that the armor moves. Down the line, also, of course, those partial dismemberments that are also definitely going to be relying on that system. So yeah, I think that's
floppy Gore.
Floppy Gore, if you want to call it that. Yeah, I think that's another cool kind of response mechanism that we have.